Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the advice that Nigel Farage has given his off-again, on-again mate Donald Trump in the event that he loses the election. Yeah, you heard that right. On the actual day of the election, Farage has finally had some acknowledgement from Trump after kissing his ass from afar for months, and he's decided to use this opportunity on the day of the election to talk about Trump losing the election. And the advice he gave, it does raise a very interesting question. I'm going to give him that. He's raised an interesting talking point. But it also indicates to me that Farage is more than a little bit worried about what his blind allegiance for Trump might do to him in terms of Reform UK's chances back here, if it all turns nasty after the election. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So it would appear that Donald Trump has finally thrown Farage a sweetie right at the close of his campaign after Farage was made to look utterly ridiculous and pathetic, trying to meet Trump in the wake of his first attempted assassination and being rebuffed time after time after time. Trump used his rally yesterday, I'm sure he talks about lots of things, but he did describe Farage as a rebel, saying, oh, you know, it can be a good thing, who was shaking things up over here in Britain, and that he was the big winner of the last election in the UK. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure Keir Starmer was. Like, he was the one who got to move in with Larry the Cat. That's sort of how you knew you won. As for shaking it up over here, Farage has absolutely done that in British politics. Yep, accurate way to describe it. No doubt he's been one of the most influential political figures in this country over the past decade, and not in a good way. But his impact in Parliament has been about as substantial as his attendance. Nigel Farage has always had his impact from the sidelines, somehow persuading the Tories to do utterly insane things for fear of him. Right? They don't really fear him in Parliament. He doesn't actually have any source of fear in Parliament. He represents like 6 MPs. But Farage seemed to enjoy the acknowledgement after a long campaign where he appeared to be shut out. If he were a dog, his tail would still be wagging now. Although I'm quite sure that even though Trump has mentioned him again, his MAGA supporters still don't know who he is. But Farage has since taken to trying to offer up some advice for the Orange one should he lose the election, something that a lot of people think is quite likely despite what the polls say. Unsurprisingly, this advice is not to go on a murderous rampage and try to use whatever Machiavellian means he thinks he has to barge his way into the White House, which is a shame because I think that's the sort of advice Trump is quite open to at this point. Now, Farage instead advised him to go and play golf and to say that he hopes that Harris would be magnanimous in victory and pardon him. Almost like Farage thinks he's trying to broker a deal whereby Harris removes Trump's major fear that he will soon be wearing orange rather than slapping it on his face in return for Trump not trying to dissolve the entire American political system and start World War III. And the idea probably sounds reasonable to Farage. He, like many people, I mean, they don't really trust the polls. I've discussed recently there may be very good reason not to trust the polls. And if he thinks Harris is going to win anyway, and that Trump is unlikely to be able to credibly steal the election if the result is clear-cut, he probably also reasons that it's in Harris's interest that there be a peaceful transfer of power, which did not occur last time and doesn't look like occurring this time. And if the price for that is Trump not facing consequences for his actions, well, so be it. And I don't know whether this is something which, anyone in the Democrats' campaign would go, well, let's think about it. But I suspect not. Like, pardoning him, first of all, it's something she can only do once president, right? And she couldn't possibly make the offer in public because that would make her look both weak and grubby at the same time. And would Trump even trust a private promise, if there's no public evidence, right? Also, if he is pardoned and somehow survives another 4 years of McDonald's, what would there be to stop him having a fourth tilt at the presidency next time? I mean, you may think, oh, come on, Phil, he's not going to be in any fit state, even for MAGA supporters in 4 years' time. Well, we don't know that, do we? I mean, let's face it, while Trump lives, MAGA lives, and there's no obvious heir to the throne it occurs to me that Trump could remain king of the Republicans, whether they like it or not, for as long as he draws breath. It might actually be better for Harris and the Democrats at large that Trump faces justice, even if it means dealing with more destruction before he does so. But Farage does effectively raise an interesting point. If the main reason Trump is running for presidency at all is because he fears prison and hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements, fines, legal fees and so on, and he is threatening something very akin to civil war, I don't think it will break out into full civil war, then would buying him off be worth it? You know. But there's another interesting question here. Why has Farage, after finally being acknowledged by his God, suddenly decided to talk about what Trump should do if he loses on the day Americans go to the polls? I mean, it's a very Trump thing to do, by the way. Neither he nor his campaign have ever been on message during the whole thing, as far as I can tell. But I'm not sure it's the sort of statement designed to win Trump's approval. You know, so is Farage worried about what may happen and how it could affect his own reputation back home? After all, Farage backs Trump slavishly in everything he does and says. Sometimes he recognises that something that Trump has done or said looks really bad, so then he tries to excuse it. Oh, he didn't actually mean it like that, I meant it like this. But what would Farage do if Harris is the winner of the election, quite clearly, and Trump, fearing the aforementioned prison and another bankruptcy, decides to use every dirty method he thinks he has available to him, whether he does or not, including blowing away the very few checks and balances still left in America's political system, and also including, but not limited to, violence, albeit probably not on Capitol Hill this time. It would be very difficult for Farage to even excuse behaviour like that in the UK, let alone defend it. And as he is both the leader of a political party in Westminster that is constantly trying to get himself in front of a camera and a host on a show on GB News, it would be quite difficult for him to just suddenly go in hiding for a month and maintain radio silence until it all goes away. As I've been discussing recently, Reform UK have been trying to distance themselves from the Tommy Robinson crowd because they don't want to be associated with violent lawlessness, basically. Goes down very badly with the sort of voters they're hoping to win over in order to build on the number of seats at the next election. So maybe Farage worries about what his very close association with Donald Trump will do to his party's electoral chances in the UK if the orange one has a tantrum, the likes of which America has not seen since one part of it told another part of it that maybe they shouldn't have slaves. Perhaps Farage is as desperate as Trump, hence his suggestion that maybe Harris offer to pardon him as a way of, you know, appeasing the raging orange toddler. Just let him have the candy bar, for goodness sake. It's easier in the long run. But like I say, I'm not sure I see that happening. I don't think it is easier in the long run. Perhaps, instead of advising Trump to go and play golf, he should instead advise him to see that he practices picking up the soap without bending over. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.